Okay. All right, I think we're good to go now. How's everyone doing?
Great.
Yay, yay, it's the last night of class. 4 nights we powered through it. This is the first time we've done a class where we've done 4 in such a short time. We usually spread it out over 4 weeks. So you'll have to let me know what you think about the arrangement of setting it up as 2 weeks and 2 weeks, or 2 a week, because that was different for us. So just let us know that arrangement. Any questions from last time?
I have a question about one of the handouts.
Okay.
It involves the group gathers at Mount St. Francis every other month on like the third Monday of the
Oh,
month.
this is not?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm not on social media, but would probably like to attend some of those. Where do you all meet exactly? Where is at Mount St. Francis?
We usually have been meeting out at the shelter house. That was the special friend. I'm not gonna say that right, but they used to do the gardening for the handicapped children. That shelter house had us. You drive to the back of the parking lot,
Okay.
you'll see it on the right hand side. Like
Okay.
it's back there.
Okay.
I don't remember what it's called. It's what I got. But we can make
Follow the crowds.
but we can make sure that you get added to the email list because we're not gonna meet this month.
Okay.
Because Kayla's taking the statewide invasive one, so this can actually be like a 10-week program, and she's doing that on Monday nights.
Mhm.
So we're not gonna meet this month, and we'll meet in April.
Okay.
But we can add you to that email distribution list.
That'd be great. Okay.
We can do that. Any other questions so far? Nothing. All right, we are going to get started with our native plants for Indiana landscapes. And I already had to make a correction to this when I looked at it at 11 o'clock last night. They had a plant marked. I was like, wait a second. Someone duplicated their slide and forgot to change the name on it. So it happens. We're good. So it's gonna be slow. Hold on. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. So why are we gonna add natives to our garden? Well, we've kind of been talking about that the whole time. They're better adapted to our climate. They may not need as much water, so some of them can handle it being a little bit drier and can handle our weather changes. They often require fewer pesticides because they're accommodated to this area. They provide food and shelter for our native wildlife, and they promote biodiversity and stewardship. So we've kind of been talking about this the whole time, and we're just going to expand on it a little bit more to talk about those natives. So the first one up is butterfly weed. From the there's several milkweeds. This is one of 3 that we're going to talk about tonight. There are actually 12 types of milkweed in Indiana, but there's only 3 that are the most abundant, is what I'll use that word. Okay, and so most of you know these milkweeds are mainly for monarchs. That's what the eggs are on, the adults feed on. So that's what they're there for. This one prefers full sun. This is a full sun plant, likes well-drained soils, but can do well in some soils that are moderately wet. But this would not be like a rain garden plant where it might stand in water. It would not like that at all. Has those nice bright flowers. The bees and other butterflies also like it. It can be slow to come up in the spring, and it's hard to transplant successfully because it has a really deep taproot on it. So if you have it, it may be best just to leave it where it is. Karen, have you tried to transplant any in your line of work?
No, I have not.
Yeah, I've done plugs and they did really well, but
Yeah.
I've never tried to move it. So
I've done some, because I had a glob of seed all at one place. And about half of them survived,
Yeah.
as long as I could keep the roots down in the ground and keep them watered.
Yeah,
But they were pretty small. I mean, they were,
I've transplanted some of it,
the little ones though, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yours were bigger?
full plant.
Oh, there you go. See, Angel's got the green thumb. Man, Angel should be up here. I don't know. I think I'd probably kill it if I tried it.
I have a question about that. Are you aware of bees ever getting stuck on those, on butterfly weed?
I've never heard of any getting stuck.
I read or heard that somewhere and didn't know if that was true.
I've never seen.
I don't know.
Okay.
And I mean, I guess it's possible. I mean, it's possible for anything to get stuck in anything. It's essentially, I mean, if you have bad vision of how wide you are versus how wide an opening is, it's possible to get stuck, you know. No, I've never heard of that.
Okay.
This one, you can also start from seed, but the seed need to be planted in the fall because they have to go through that stratification period, which is our cold spell, to germinate. The deer don't like it, so if you're looking for a deer tolerant plant, here you go. This is it. Okay. The next milkweed that we're going to talk about is the common milkweed. Again, it prefers full sun. Out here, you'll see it growing like crazy in our fields because that's where it likes to grow. We have occasionally harvested seed from it, and it can tolerate moderately wet soils to dry soils. So it would do well in our area based on the fact that we get lots of rainy days and then it dries out pretty quickly. It can grow from 3 to 5 feet tall, and it blooms from June to August. So that's that mid-season feeder for pollinators. It may occasionally get aphids and sooty mold, and you need to space them about 2 feet apart. So if you're the one planting them, plant them about 2 feet apart because they will spread. Okay. And I will, when I send this out, I'll send the link because you can collect the seeds. So I'll send a link that has a video on how to properly collect those seeds because there's a very specific time frame to do it in the pod.
You said they will spread, you mean they will spread, just they'll get big, not like they're not gonna reproduce by their,
Oh, no, yeah, the multiple plants will start to come up from one. So instead of just, like, you might start with one stem one
Yeah.
year, and the next year you may have a second stem
I
come
see.
up. Yeah. I won't say that they're super aggressive. Out here, they look aggressive, but that's because there's so many already out there. And these always look funny anyway, because they come and they mow kind of about mid-season. And then the way the plants work is because that top was cut off and they forces them to branch. So people tend to argue and say, oh, that's not milkweed. I'm like, it was, but it was forced to branch because the growing tip was cut off. So, yeah, we have a sizable clump out by the bee yard. So. And then we have swamp milkweed. And this one comes kind of in a, you have that purple to red tone there, and it likes full sun. It does like wet soils based on the name, swamp milkweed. It can handle those wet soils and can do some well-drained soils. It grows 2 to 5 feet tall. So this is another one that's where the butterfly weed stayed kind of small. Common and swamp do get relatively tall. And you would want to, if you're planting from seed, plant in the fall, or you need to stratify them before planting. So if you're going to plant from seed and you don't plant in the fall, you have to put the seed in the refrigerator for a little while to give it that cold period. All right. Any questions about those?
if you buy seeds, does anybody sell pre-stratified seeds?
Not that I'm aware
Is
of.
that like a bad idea?
I think it's because they don't know we're gonna plant it. That's why they don't sell them. So like Prairie Moon's a really common one that people buy natives from, and they'll send you the chart and say, hey, look on your seed packet, whatever that chart says, based on the seed packet lettering, that's what you need to do to the seeds. So no one's going to do it for
I'm
you.
just thinking, like, if I were a business owner and I was like, I'm gonna sell you this product, you can't use it for 90 days. It'd be better if I'm like, here you go, plant it. I could, well, sorry, I'm just.
No, I mean, I get where you're coming from, because then it kind of takes the guesswork out of it a little bit for the
Yeah,
end consumer, but
Aren't most stratifications was moist as well, and so that,
yeah, that's true. I guess you're right. It's not just like take a seed packet and put it in a freezer. It's
I
like,
mean,
yeah,
I put it in a little soil in one of those little plastic containers and
Mhm.
that's moist soil and in my refrigerator.
Well, and the moisture is really only helping soften the seed coat a little bit, but even if it, so let's say you just put it somewhere moist, it still wouldn't necessarily germinate as well because it has to have that cold factor. So,
Do these, all three of those, support all the, butterflies or, from the eggs to?
yep, because they're all the milkweeds, yep. And the thing with this is, so even though they're a native plant, a lot of our native plants got the name weed because farmers found them in their fields and gave them the term weed. You have to be careful because they will spread, and if you have cattle farmers nearby, they're not gonna be happy with you because the cows shouldn't eat it, but if it's the only thing out there that they can consume, then they will eat it and it will make them ill. So, because it does have some toxins in it for the animals, so just be aware of that. Like I have it, my neighbor has cattle, I just try to keep an eye out to make sure it's not gonna go everywhere. So I go collect the seed heads and things like that, so it doesn't. He already doesn't like me, so why give him another reason to not like me? It's fine. Our next plant is the New England aster. It's very pretty purple, likes full sun, but will tolerate some shade. It can also tolerate a lot of soils, whether they be really dry or kind of wet. So you can use it in a rain garden, and it will grow 3 to 5 feet tall. We used to have a bunch of it out here in the roundabout, but we had to take some of it out. It got rather large. Your varieties are purple or violet, lavender, and pink, depending on the plant genetics. If I can get my keys out tonight. Man, life's rough this week. So it will also flower up through October. This is your later pollination food. All right, and there are many asters in the New England aster designation. This one's easy to identify the plant because the hairy stems and the leaves that clasp the stem in a distinctive manner nearly encircling it, which makes it unique. So that leaf clasp pretty much encircles the stem. Okay. Our next one is pink turtlehead. So this is a clumping native perennial in the plantain family. Okay. Has a pinkish purple flower. It has a terminal spike. So terminal meaning that it kind of stops at the end, like that's where it stops flowering at. And the flowers are said to resemble the head of a turtle. So that's how it got its common name. And let's see here, which soil? It prefers a wet to wet mesic soil. So wet to semi-wet soils. Okay. It's 2 to 4 feet tall. It's going to bloom July, August, and into September. And it has been reported that hummingbirds do like it as well. Okay, so it's got, if you look at those flowers, they're more tubular, so the hummingbird can kind of get in there with their beak. It is host of the Baltimore checker spot, as well as bees and other moths and butterflies. Okay, so this would be the larvae of that.
Is it a full sun plant?
It can do sun to part shade. Yeah. It is full sun, part shade. The next one, purple colored flower. We're all, I think, are pretty familiar with this one because it's pretty common. And again, prefers full sun. It can tolerate a wide range of soils, except for soils that are consistently wet. So it does not like to have consistently wet feet. It's drought tolerant once it's established, and also deer resistant. So if the deer like to munch in your garden, this may be a good one to plant. All right.
Do they grow well in containers?
They won't, I don't know that they'd overwinter in containers. You might be able to grow them in the container, but I don't know that they would overwinter well because the roots are too exposed.
Okay.
'Cause
so
even
you
though they're in
you
the
could
container-
Be like an annual.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because those roots, the pot's not gonna keep it near as warm as if it were in the ground.
Okay. It's got a long taproot, doesn't it?
Yeah, it can get pretty extensive.
Okay.
I've tried to dig one up before, didn't go well.
I heard a lot of herb webinar,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
had never heard it before.
yeah, it did. It could have gone better.
Okay.
It could have gone better. So the next one is Black Eyed Susan. Again, another one that we're all pretty familiar with. And it really thrives in disturbed areas, prefers full sun, and does well in soils that are dry to moderately well drained. You could probably put this also on the edge of a rain garden and it would do okay. It's 1 to 3 feet tall and blooms June through October. It has naturalized through most of the continent. And this one is considered, even though it's a perennial, we would consider it a biennial. So it's really not a perennial, but a biennial where it's growing low the first year, second year flowering and setting seeds. The reason it keeps coming back is because of the prolific seed bank that it lays. Okay. Let's see anything. All right, next one is stick goldenrod. Okay, I know goldenrod, some people are not real sure about it. So it's a native perennial, which usually occurs in open woods, glades, and thickets. Has the tiny bright yellow flowers like you see on the photos. It will grow 3 to 5 feet tall and has hairy stems. Okay. Let's see, and the goldenrods have been wrongfully accused of causing hay fever, which is actually an allergic reaction to windborne pollen from other plants such as ragweed. But I will say be careful when you're dealing with plants that are already setting pollen. Maybe a good idea to go ahead and wear the long sleeves because you could, regardless of the plant, have a reaction to the plant touching your skin, whether it be the pollen or the leaves, just saying. And it does full sun to light shade. And it doesn't have any serious insect or disease problems. So if you don't want to have to go spray it or check it for diseases, this may be the way to go.
We're gonna talk about ragweed,
We're not going to talk about ragweed.
because I hear that all the time, that only in context like goldenrod, great. Maligned, but it's actually ragweed's the problem, and then it's like, don't worry about ragweed. But it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And it's probably because it's not one that we put in cultivation.
It doesn't flower attractively.
Right, yeah, we don't have like cultivated varieties of it that we go and sell for,
But does it, like, if you have ragweed, just leave it alone?
we can, yeah.
And does it have a beneficial ecosystem purpose?
It's serving some insects and stuff. It's not serving them. It's just, these are the plants that we find in cultivation. So these are the easy ones for us to
Yeah,
tell you about because people are going to destroy ragweed because of the fall allergies. So, yeah. It's a fine line to have to walk sometimes when you're talking to homeowners because you're like, oh, well, if you can leave your plants and only take out the invasives, that's great. But they're like, but that one makes me sick or whatever. Okay, well, you could take it out, but what are you going to replace it with to help combat it? So, yeah. Spiderwort. Some nice kind of purplish flower. And there are several species that are native to Indiana, so you can look to see what the different species look like in terms of height and leaf shading and stuff. And it prefers full sun, but it can also tolerate consistently wet soil. So this would be another one that you could do in a rain garden without a problem. And it's 2 to 3 feet tall and can bloom May to July, and depending on the weather, maybe even a little bit longer than that. So the seed germinates nicely with a fall planting or following a 4-month period of moist cold stratification. So this would be one that you could put in that damp paper towel or whatever and throw it in the fridge for approximately 120 days. Okay. Next one is the blue mist flower. Okay. This one prefers full sun, can handle some wet soils and some dry soils, so it can kind of fill the gamut. 1 to 2 foot tall and attracts bees, butterflies, moths, and flies. So wait, I'll go back because my arrow was in the wrong spot. My fault. It, usually those flowers have between 35 and 70, flowers, there's like 35 to 70 of these per stem. Okay, and it does spread by rhizomes. This is one that's gonna spread, underground.
How tall is it?
It gets 2 to 3 feet. 1 to 2, sorry, I lied, 1 to 2. It could probably get a little taller than 2 feet, given the right conditions. So this one's gonna spread.
In the spring? Is that what you said?
No, this one's a little bit later. Yeah, this one's a little bit later. Cause I always thought that someone cut mine down and like dug it up, cause I have like one, so I'm like, oh wait, no, and that comes back much later in the season. So it's not a spring one that I'm looking to flower, it's much later in the season.
Okay.
All right. Now, the spotted Joe Pye weed. Okay, so we're gonna talk about a couple different Joe Pye weeds. This one's the spotted one. And it does full sun to almost full sun and rich moist soils. And it grows very tall under the ideal growing conditions. So you have the perfect spot for it. It will grow very, very tall. You can find it along ditches, and they bloom for many weeks from July through August. It is also resistant to deer damage, so another one of those that the deer are not fond of. You also can divide this plant in the spring or in the fall. So this would be one that you could spend a little money on once, never have to spend money on it again.
Rhizomes?
Yes.
Okay.
You are correct.
Dividing one of those columns is really hard.
Right, yeah, and so that's the problem is sometimes it can be very hard to divide some of those clumps, but it can be done.
Yeah.
Can be done, sometimes maybe
By
not.
young, strong people.
There you go.
Sure, no,
One of the popular cultivars for this one is called Gateway, and it's more compact and only gets between 4 and 5 feet tall. So where this one's looking, 60-ish feet, the other ones are,
9-inch.
yeah, it's all relative depending on how tall you are, as to how tall the plant is sometimes.
I've had them be up to 9 feet tall.
Yeah, so you can get some that are more compact.
Already set up on your tractor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, it's all relative. It's all relative. It doesn't have any serious insects or disease problems. So a good thing to know. Next one is Queen of the Prairie. This was new to me when I checked this out. And it has rhizomes as well, so this would be one spreading underground. And it makes a great plant for naturalizing moist meadows. So if you have a moist meadow, this would do really well. And it says semi-aggressive on my notes, so beware of it. Semi-aggressive. Very tall and upright, and it's 6 to 8 feet tall. So when we say very tall, we're looking at the 6 to 8 feet range. Okay, it has a fragrance to it, so if you are okay with fragrant flowers, this would be one that you could use. It's a good foliage plant that is valued for both its leaves and flowers. And deer resistant and can tolerate clay soils. So
Did you say it does tolerate?
yeah, tolerates clay soils. Deer resistant and likes clay soils.
They
Man,
love
what else could we ask for in the state of
Yeah.
Indiana, right?
it. Sign me up.
All right. Next one is our dense blazing star. There's actually several cultivars in the market that are shorter or more compact. This one is 2 to 4 feet tall. And as it says on here, it can get much taller if it has the ideal growing conditions. So sun to a part sun and moist to wet soil. So again, the edge of a rain garden might work well for it. And it attracts a lot of pollinators to it because of those nice showy flowers. So tolerates summer heat and humidity. So it would do well in July, and it probably wouldn't look like it's wilting or anything like that. has a very shallow fibrous root system and forms new colonies from its corm. So versus a rhizome, it's creating these corms, which is how it is spreading.
I might have missed this, but this picture looks like it's taken in the same place as the last, like, where are these pictures taken at?
Couple different people took them. So they couldn't, let's see, I don't think Amy said where she took this one from. Let's see. I say Amy took this one, but
I mean,
Oh.
it just looks like a nice place. I want to go there and get some ideas.
yeah, so, someone that used to work with you, Mary Welch Kesey, took a lot of these. I would say this was taken at a botanic garden somewhere based on the signage, but I don't know which botanic garden she would have taken them at. So a lot of the photos are hers, and then other ones come from Amy Thompson, who's my counterpart in Monroe County, which is Bloomington.
Mhm.
So they have a lot of nice spaces in Bloomington where you can get photos at. All right, bergamot. Also called Minarda, by most of us. And just so you know, this is a hawk moth here. Freaks a lot of people out when they're calling because they see this thing that they've never seen before, but it looks like a bee, but it has clear wings. And what is it? It's a hawk moth. And apparently this also has a name called horse mint. I've never heard that before, but it can also be called horse mint by some. And it's a native perennial that occurs in dry soils on prairies, dry rocky woods, and glade margins, unplanted fields, and along roadsides and railroads. 2 to 4 feet tall. I think there's a few cultivars that get taller than that because I feel the ones at my house were like 5 feet tall, and the wind came and knocked them all down because the stems weren't very thick. Okay. So this is also tolerant of the black walnut. So black walnut produces a chemical called jugualone to keep plants from growing around it. Minarda can tolerate that jugualone. So fun fact for the night. And it's also good as a dried cut flower, tolerates deer and clay soils. Check.
In my experience from my dad's farm, bush honeysuckle also tolerates jugular.
Yeah, there's
There's no
actually,
problem.
that's probably part of the problem. It doesn't, it can grow up the black walnut and stuff and never have or grow near it and never have a problem, but there's actually a couple in here where they note that they're tolerant of the black walnut, so good. Those are good things to keep in mind when thinking about that. The only real issue with this one is that it can get powdery mildew, but that's kind of seasonal, so just clean up the leaf debris and trash it. And it says that this has, not saying you should use this for medicinal use, but it has a lot of medicinal properties that has been used. You never tell anyone to go consume plants for medicinal uses. Always consult your doctor.
Also called bee balm.
Yes, bee balm. Bee balm, Minarda. We're using it, horse mint. Now I kind of want to use that and start screwing people up, saying, well, why don't you get horse mint?
Yeah.
It's fine, it's fine. All right, foxglove or penstemon. Penstemon, yes. So might also be called beard's tongue. Depends on who you talk to, what region of the state you're from, and what you know about plants. 2 to 3 feet tall, has white pink flowers, and does well in medium to dry medium soils, and can adapt to many light conditions, but it likes full sun to part shade. And it's really easy to grow from seed. So if you want to try to grow some, you can. Based on the flowers, the bumblebees do really well about crawling in there to get the pollen and nectar. So you'll see a lot of bumblebees crawling down the flowers. Okay. And here's your fun fact. Penstemons are called beard's tongue because the sterile stamen has a tuft of small hairs. That's apparently how it got its name. That sterile stamen has a tuft of hairs on it, and it's, I guess, looks like a tongue. That's how we got it. So it is tolerant of deer, drought, and clay soils. So another winner around here for deer and clay soils. Doesn't have a lot of issues with disease or other insects. And root rot could occur if it is in a really wet area that's poorly drained. So again, right plant, right place. Can spread somewhat aggressively in a garden setting. I have yet to see that, but I guess it's possible. I wish it were aggressive in my garden. Obedient plant. Okay, has kind of a similar flower shape to the foxglove that we just looked at. Thrives in wetter soils and full sun. Can do well in soils that are moderately wet or well drained. 2 to 4 foot tall. And this one had a fun fact about why it's called obedient plant. But it's because when you move the stems where the flowers are at, they'll stay where you move them. But our running joke is usually it is not obedient if you're looking at the growing pattern because it will spread quite rapidly. And our suggestion is always to plant it in a pot and sink the pot in the ground to help keep it from spreading too much. So it's obedient in terms of that you can play with the flower stalks, but it's not obedient in terms of it growing. And deer are not interested in it, and it tolerates clay soils. So take it for what it's worth. Our next one is wild geranium. Probably seen this one around. And it grows in shade to part shade. It likes a little bit drier soils, so it does not like to have wet feet. And it mounds to about 1 foot tall. So it's what we consider more of a mounding plant. And it blooms in the spring. So, and each seed is packed into a pod, and the pods are attached to a structure that resembles a crane's bill. That's why it's also sometimes called crane's bill geranium. All right. As the bill is, it literally catapults the seed away from the parent plant. So Nathan, last time you were asking about plants that like shot their seeds out, this will shoot its seeds out and catapult the seeds out. So if you really want those, maybe you want to do a garden that has plants that catapult their seeds. I don't know.
Action garden.
There you go. Yeah. Garden in action.
Did you say that's a ground cover?
Yeah, kind of. So it grows in like more of a mound that gets to be about 1 foot tall.
Okay.
Our next one is wild ginger. This is not the ginger that we eat. It is not the culinary ginger. It makes a native ground cover. So if you're looking for a ground cover, you can look for this. And it does well on average to medium wet soils and does shade to full shade. So if you have a lot of shade, this would be the plant that you're looking to get. All right. And it does like acidic soils too. So if you have some acidic soils, this might be the plant for you. Now that makes me wonder if it would grow under blueberries. Like if you wanted to do a ground cover under your blueberries, if you could grow this under your blueberries. I don't know. Oh, the thoughts we have when teaching.
To me, if you showed me this picture and I didn't see what it was, like, I would wonder if that's not garlic mustard. Does it not
Same
look
here.
similar? I don't think it is. Like, garlic mustard has like a little fringier edge, I think.
Yeah, and these leaves are larger than what they appear in the photo. That's part of it too.
Okay.
Yeah, and the cut in for the leaf is a much larger than what you would see in garlic mustard.
Okay.
Yeah, because you see how deep this comes in. I mean, it's coming in a good 1/4 of the way.
So the leaf like wraps back around quite a bit.
Yeah.
So this one is one that my wife and I talked about as a potential. We have a huge amount of periwinkle and winter creeper that I'm like working on,
Uh-huh.
and as a potential, but it's in the shade.
Uh-huh.
So are we correct that that would be a reasonable
This would
thing
be,
to
this
use?
would be your thing, yeah. Mhm.
And what moisture does it like? Or is it dry?
It does, it could do, let's see, let me refresh my memory, because we've talked about so many here. Well drained, medium to
Okay.
wet to well drained. So it can kind of do, it just can't do dry.
Okay,
Can't do like super dry.
okay.
Let's see here. Oh, yeah, we could also try this under pine trees, as Travis mentioned, with pine trees like acidic soil. So yeah, you could also do this under your pine trees. If you didn't want to have to try to get underneath them. So our next plant is the Christmas fern. So you'll get a publication from me at the end, and it's POL-6. So it's our pollinator publication -6. It's about native plants for pollinators. This isn't on there, but when they did the PowerPoint, they wanted to make sure that you had some options for some ferns. They don't necessarily attract pollinators, but they're good native plants that you can use to kind of cover the ground. So this one's a Christmas fern, and it's a rhizome subterranean woody evergreen that may grow 2 to 3 feet tall. Okay, so this will take up some space, and it grows in a fountain-like manner. And the fronds have many leaflets and grow directly from the ground in a clump, so no bark is present. It also does not produce flowers. It's a fern, so it does not do the flower thing. It does little black spores on the underside of the leaves. So best grown in organically rich, dry to medium moisture, well-drained soils in part shade to full shade. So Nathan, back to your point of looking for something to grow kind of in the shade. This wouldn't necessarily be a ground cover, but if you want to do some spot plantings,
Just to mix it up a little bit.
this would be that shade plant.
Does it, you said it spreads with rhizomes, does it propagate some, just not quickly?
Yeah, it is not a quick, doesn't do quick at all.
So this is the kind of thing that you would buy them as plants.
Yep.
And, Yeah.
If you were doing a lot, I'd do it as plugs. So I've done that where I've actually gone to a couple places that I know and said, hey, will you order me some plugs of things? Because most of the time you can't find plugs for this stuff. You can go to, Goshen and order plugs, which are cheaper because your plugs are usually $3 a plug versus buying a plant between $10 and $20. So if you had a special order, you could call someplace and say, hey, will you, start some plugs for me and all.
right, like if you want to get like 30 plants or something, do it.
Yeah.
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 Fern does some plugs. I don't know if they do this one in particular.
Yeah, I don't know.
Some things are only available in plugs, some only in plants, and some in both.
Yeah. And sometimes if you call around, though, some of the local stores will also might call around to their vendors and make orders for you if you are definitely going to purchase those plants, and they'll be happy to do like a special order for you. They just have to know, because there's not a ton of people going, ooh, let me plant Christmas cactus. Like, ooh, over here. It's just not where the market's at yet.
We gotta bring them around.
That's right, we have to bring around, got to spread the word. So you can start gifting people Christmas cactuses, Hey, here, put this in your shaded area, see what
Christmas
happens.
fern.
Yeah. Yeah, so again, this is one of the awesome ones that we can choose from. Another fern that we can choose from that's kind of cool, the ostrich fern. Okay. And it's also not in the publication. And they have updated the scientific name on this one. So between the time this was created and the time giving this, they've updated the scientific name. We're doing lots of edits to make sure everything is up to date. So it's easily grown in average, medium to wet soils in part shade to full shade. So if you wanted to have a fern garden and mix it up a little bit, you can throw this in there as well. Soil must never be allowed to dry out, and it spreads by underground rhizomes. So in time, this will also create dense colonies. And it tolerates sun with cool temperatures and adequate moisture. So if it's in an area that does get some sun sometimes, as long as the temperatures are cool, it can still tolerate it. So I think I have a few of these as well. They're planted underneath the sycamore tree. So during the summer, it's covered, gets a little bit of light in the winter, but it's also cool in relatively until we hit 70 degrees, in February. Then it's, kind of all out the window, but. All right. Next one is the maidenhair fern. Another one you can use, and it's highly recommended for home landscaping because it makes a nice border with the wild geranium. when we're talking about the wild geranium earlier, you can plant this with it to get a nice border. It's deer resistant. The northern maidenhair fern is deciduous and is clumping, and it typically grows 1 to 2 foot tall. Okay. Let's see here.
If you haven't been saying deer resistant, can we infer the opposite?
Yeah, but here's the, we can say deer resistant, but at the same time, deer don't read the tags
Yeah,
and go, oh, I'm not supposed to eat that.
They bite first.
And they, yeah, they might go ahead and nip on it too, or if there's nothing else for them to browse on, they might browse on them anyway. Cause like I have some hostas that are variegated, so in theory, the deer aren't supposed to mess with hostas that are variegated because that white is not supposed to be tasty. They mess with mine all the time. They don't necessarily eat them, they move them, so I have to transplant them because they're like, it's in my way, I'm going to move it for you.
and they yank out.
Yeah, they shake it out. So they never ever take like a full bite of it, but they will move plants. Yeah. And he leaves his calling card because he makes sure that his hoof goes down and tells me that he's been there to move it. So it's also the same one that nips on my red twig dogwood and stuff like that. But they're, I don't think they're supposed to like red twig dogwoods either, but they like mine. So if there's nothing else for them to browse on, there's a potential that even though we say deer resistant or deer tolerant, they're still gonna nip on a little bit.
Well, I guess I'm just thinking about the ones that
Uh-huh.
you're not saying are deer resistant or deer tolerant. Are they just gonna be like, oh, instantly munched on?
No, not necessarily, because again, if there's a lot of stuff for them to browse on, then they're gonna browse on the stuff they really want versus your plants. But you also know if they're close to your house, I mean, if the plants are close to your house and the deer's coming that close, the deer's pretty brazen to walk that close to your house.
Yeah.
To eat out of your beds.
I guess I'm thinking about a lot of the stuff that I'm thinking about is more like restoration activities where I'm trying to do a quarter acre.
Right,
And
so you definitely at that point you'd want something that's at least labeled deer resistant to try to keep the deer from browsing in
Yeah.
them. Assuming that you have trees and stuff, the deer are still gonna be there, so yeah, if you don't want them to munch on them. Then yeah, I don't, Angel, would you check that publication? I don't remember if it says deer resistant. I don't think it does. I think it just says what pollinators are attracted to it. It's a whole graph. So, yeah.
that's okay. I mean, I can research this stuff myself, just,
Well, and I'll send this to you, but I'll make sure to send like the whole, like I'm gonna do with the other one where I send the whole thing so you can not have to search. You can also Google deer tolerant plants and get a whole list and just cross-reference
Yeah.
them. So, all right, Joe Pye weed number 2, the sweet Joe Pye weed. Okay, this one's easily to grow, has a vanilla scented flower, and the monarchs really enjoy this plant as well. Okay, and it can reach heights of 7 feet. Okay, so if you're looking for something tall, this is it. And if you have too much shade for the regular Joe Pye weed, this one will handle a little bit of shade as well. So. Cardinal flower, get some reds in here. We didn't have a lot of reds in here yet. Grows in rich, medium to wet soils and full sun to part shade. This one will handle a wide variety of things. Needs constant moisture and it will tolerate brief flooding. And so if we have some, a ditch or something that's gonna have some standing water briefly, you could plant this in there and it would do all right. It's a somewhat short-lived clump forming perennial. And let's see, anything else that's super important to it? Has no serious insect or disease problems except maybe snails and slugs, especially if you're putting it in a wetter area. Okay. And don't try to consume the leaves. They contain alkaloids. They're very toxic. So don't go eat this plant. Just saying. Our next one is the great blue lobelia. Okay. And it is, can also be called the blue cardinal flower. So if someone's saying blue cardinal flower, they're talking about great blue lobelia. And it grows in moist to wet locations along streams, sloughs, springs, swamps, meadows, and low wooded areas. Right, and it does form a clump, so not a single plant, but more clumping. And let's see, 2 to 3 feet tall. All right, and maybe up to the stems, maybe going up to 5 feet long on those leaves, just depends. And it's a late summer bloomer. So when we're looking at that, we're thinking about pollinators. I know we're talking about native plants, but if you're thinking about pollinators too, we got to make sure we hit spring, summer, and fall on the feeding time frame. So next one is Virginia bluebells. I can honestly say I've not had success with this plant. Does not like me. And it does well in moist, rich woods and river floodplains. So this is not one you would typically find in your home, like landscape, like poof, it's just going to show up one day. You would definitely have to plant it there. It's 1 to 2 foot tall and features loose terminal clusters of those flowers that are trumpet shaped. Let's see here. No serious insect or disease problems. The rabbits leave these alone, and they also tolerate growing under black walnut. So if you have a rabbit issue, you could try these, and you could also plant them under the black walnut. Next one, Jacob's ladder. And the picture is not great. As you can see, we didn't find all the best pictures in the world, but we tried. It can also be called creeping Jacob's ladder, and it does well in moist woodlands and along streams. So this is again another one that you would not typically find in your home landscape, and it mounds at 12 inches and could be found up to 18 inches. So not super tall, and let's see here, utilized by bees and flies. So this is not one that butterflies would be looking at. Has no serious insect or disease problems. Our next one is the poppy here. So there's some different poppies out there. This is our native one. And usually considered a woodland plant that grows in zones 4 to 8. So we're in the middle at zone 6. Up in northern Indiana, they're in zone 5. Okay. Features 4 petaled yellow flowers, which bloom in spring in small clusters. Doesn't get super tall, usually 12 to 18 inches. All right. And it does go dormant in the fall. Seedlings will readily emerge everywhere if fresh seed is scattered on the soil surface. So this is one, if you can purchase a seed, just toss it out. No need to dig a hole. All right, a large flowered trillium. Yeah, this one is our, could be called a wood lily, white trillium, great white trillium. But in no doubt referred to the early April and May bloom time. So that's why it says that early, you know, why it had that early trillium thing. It is, let's see here, it reaches about, that flower is 4 inches in diameter. Okay. And it gets about 18 inches tall, up to 18 inches, I should say. So people might mistake this for something else. You know, it kind of looks like the Jack in the Pulpit a little bit, depending on, you know, how familiar you are with that. So again, it takes years to flower when growing from seed. So if this is one that you're trying to start from seed, it will take years for it to flower. All right, let's see here. Anything else?
Does it support any insects maybe?
I'm sure it supports some, but it doesn't look like they've got them listed here. It's got to support some kind of insect because it's a flower, so it's got to have some kind of pollination to it because it's not a grass. It just doesn't specify which insects. I would say because it, you know, if it blooms kind of early, but definitely a lot of the bees would be going for it
Mhm.
and some beetles I would go with. Our next plant is the wild columbine. So it can start flowering in April and go most of the growing season, depending on where you live at. Hummingbirds love it. And the only real problem this plant has is those, well, it can have an insect problem with leaf miners if you look at the leaves and you see like the little trailing in it. But also it's a very prolific cedar. So if you're a gardener that doesn't like a prolific cedar, this would not be the plant you would want in your garden because it will just, yeah, although this is one of the I've tried to grow too and I've not had a lot of success with it. So, I've tried, I've tossed the seeds out, hoping for it would just, yeah, this is,
Growing it, it finds a crack somewhere.
Yeah. I am not that person that it likes, like, yeah,
That's one that the seeds definitely have to be stratified.
yeah, I've tried that, yeah, it just doesn't like me. Everyone has those plants that don't like you, this is one of those plants that just doesn't, I've tried and I tried. I gave up trying, I found some other stuff, or just kept biting what I already had and said, oh well. So, let's see here, anything else? That's super important about this one. Nah. Oh, and it's rabbit tolerant, so I guess that's an important fact. If you have an issue with rabbits, rabbits don't like it. That's about it for this one. Our next one, the native grasses. Okay. So almost all of our ornamental grasses prefer full sun. Most of them are drought tolerant. If they get too much water though, they'll start to flop over, which we don't want because then people get mad and they look messy if they're flopped over. You don't have to really fertilize them. They're good. They're native grasses. They don't need a whole lot of anything. We would trim them back. So some people tend to leave them for winter interest. So you would trim them back in the spring right before they start, or late winter, early spring before you start to see new growth. And if you decide to, good luck. Their ornamental grasses are very clump forming and can be very difficult to move when they've been established for a while.
When you,
Yeah.
when you say that, you mean they're difficult to move successfully, or like what about removing? Like, do they?
Either way, because if you're trying to dig up that clump,
Hard to-
it's a hard clump. Yeah.
I guess maybe the question would be like, if you have one and you don't want it, is it gonna be hard to get it gone, period?
Yes, yes. Remove, it's all hard. Once you plant it, you're kind of stuck with it. Yeah, I've been trying to remove a zebra grass for several years now. So I've only been in my house 8.5 years. I think I planted it maybe in year one. I think it was year one because my friend gave me the plant in year one. And I've been trying to remove it for several years now. And
Is
it,
that a maiden though?
no, I don't think so. At the time, it was meant to just block something that I didn't want. And then I've been trying to take it out because I was going to do renovations anyway.
Yeah.
And it started to creep out from where it was at, just like most of them do anyway, where they creep underground and start to pop up in different spots. But just to dig out the small clump I had, I have to wait till we get these torrential rains and then go out with a shovel and really hack away at it.
Gina, do you have a root slayer shovel?
I don't.
You need one.
What's that?
It's a shovel that first of all, it's shaped like this, so that whenever you step on it, it's gonna go further down into the ground. But then also, the end of it is curved like this, so that it slices through roots.
What was the name
Root slayer,
of it?
yeah,
Is it sharpened? I guess you could sharpen
it
it.
is sharpened, yeah.
Would you say that name once again?
Root slayer.
Root slayer. Slayer, yeah. And
You
so
can
some,
get them on Amazon or anything.
yeah, there's a lot of specialty tools out there to help with the removal of plants instead of just the basic shovel and stuff. You just have to think about, there's, you and Mary Lee both had one that was like the
Extractigator.
extractigator. Yes, Angel would read my mind that helps to give you, like, you can use it for small shrubs and stuff, and it helps give you the leverage to kind of pop it out.
It's like, is it the one that has like a little foot on it that
Uh-huh.
it's a fulcrum?
Yeah. So there's some specialty tools out there to help and the removal, not just of invasives, but if you're trying to remove other plants in the same manner. So that you're not like breaking your back with just a regular shovel or angrily hacking at it with like some kind of blade. You know,
The actual native grasses that I have experience with are not as bad to dig out or move as some of those that are
Mhm.
sold for ornamentals that aren't
Yeah.
native. Those can be just,
but some of the ones, once they get, some of these names, once they get really large, though, you have a hard time. You would be able to divide them more than you would doing the whole clump. You'd be able to kind of whittle some out. So,
I have a question.
Yeah.
How necessary is it to trim them back? What happens if you just let them go?
they look kind of shaggy because then they're all the dead staying there. So all those blades die off in the winter.
But in a natural setting,
In a natural, I mean, that's
seems like,
right. And so it's providing habitat. So sometimes the birds might come get the leaves.
um,
Usually some of the stems are hollow, so insects are using that for nesting. So a lot of the native bees can use that for nesting and stuff. But yeah, in a homeowner setting, a lot of people would prefer that their neighbors
Yeah.
remove the dead leaves at some point, because also when we get those large windstorms, and they really start to look ratty when the winds have hit them.
okay.
Let's see here. I got a chat that popped up. Oh, so Travis asked where you can get the root slayer. I think Karen just said that you can find tools like that like on Amazon. Yeah. So Amazon's a good place. Or some of the local garden centers are starting to sell more of the specialized tools.
Amazon's, Ace, Lowe's,
Yeah. Yeah. So people are starting to get, because they know people are
Home Depot,
wanting to remove certain plants and are having trouble doing that. So you can
Walmart.
shop around, look for a good price, whatever works for you. All right, our next plant here is it's gonna be slow again. Bottle brush grass. This is a cool season grass. It actively grows during spring and fall. So this is one that will not actively grow in our summer months. And it forms loose upright tufts on narrow blades and can get, those blades are 12 inches long. All right. Let's see here. So people might consider it looking kind of like a hedgehog or a porcupine based on the spikes. Depends on your view of the plant world. It is self-sows, but is not aggressive. So if you want one that's a self-sower, you can use this one as well. And the seeds attract birds. It's tolerant of drought, heavy shade, erosion, dry soil, black walnuts, and air pollution. Yeah, so this one's got all kinds of things on it. Next one is switchgrass. So this one has a bluish tint in the summer, and then it turns kind of a red in the fall, and is a fast spreading spreader by rhizomes. So it has a lot of rhizomes that it will spread by. And it grows 3 to 4 feet tall and maybe 7 feet, depending on the location. Okay.
this one does tend to stay upright more than some of the others.
Yeah, there are some that are definitely more,
I've been very pleased with mine.
oh, good.
It's a beautiful grass.
Yeah, I think I have, is this the one I have? I don't know. I have one. I planted a few and I only one survived. I don't know. You think a Hort Major can make all the plants survive? Doesn't happen. So let's see here. Anything else? This one, outside of also being deer tolerant, is also salt tolerant. So if maybe you're looking at some place near a roadside that's getting a lot of salt, you could look at planting this, that it can handle some of that salt. It's also a prolific cedar, should be used with caution in very small landscapes. So, just food for thought. See here, our next one is the little blue stem. We'll talk about big blue stem in a minute here. So this one has a burgundy to rust foliage that lasts from fall through winter, so that coloration stays through the winter. Let's see here. It's an iconic warm season grass of the prairie habitat. It's used in both landscaping and restoration practices.
So it's called blue stem, but it's red?
Yeah,
And it's blue when it's in the green.
it's, yeah, see, this is the active, so it has more of a blue tinge here, and then more towards the fall, we're aiming for that
I see.
red, yeah. Plants, they're awesome like that. Then you have to think, if you don't know what it is in the fall, then you gotta think about what it looks like.
I mean, we change color too, as we go through life stages, so.
We do, yes, yes, so they do the same. They do indeed. So it matures at 2 to 4 feet tall. That's why it's little blue stem and not big blue stem, because big blue stem's much taller. Let's see, anything else that's it's very drought tolerant, but it can handle some moisture. And let's see, anything else that's super important? Oh, insects that feed on it include grasshoppers, prairie walking sticks, the leaf mining beetles, thrips, spittlebugs, and leaf hoppers. So some of those insects are good, some not so good, but how do you keep, you can't keep the bad ones away. So tolerant of deer, drought, erosion, dry soil, shallow rocky soil, black walnut, and air pollution. So this, again, a lot of the native grasses can really go just about anywhere.
If any of these will tolerate some shade, would you let us know?
Yeah, and some of, yeah, that one that we just did will tolerate some, not this one, but the one before it would tolerate. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep. And then we've got Indian grass. And this one's a warm season grass, which is on the prairies and glades that you can find it. It grows 3 to 5 feet tall, maybe 6 feet, depending on conditions. So if it has all the perfect conditions, it can get that 6 foot tall. And has that blue-green foliage. Let's see, anything else? No serious insect or disease problems. Just like the other grasses, it can handle the black walnut, the air pollution, erosion, all that good stuff.
Is it related to sorghum? I just noticed it's sorghum.
Yep. So it would be in that family.
Yeah.
There's several of our ornamental grasses or grasses as a whole that are related to sorghum.
Mhm.
Next one is, if it's gonna go, maybe, prairie drop seed. So you can see this one kind of has that delicate seed head here, and definitely not more of the erect, but has more free flowing, we'll call it free flowing look with those leaves. And it is a slow grower and does not seed readily. So if you're looking for something that doesn't really spread a whole lot, this would be one of those options.
What about the sun? Does it tolerate part shade?
This one I think is a full sun. It might do a little bit of shade, but it depends on how much shade you're calling part shade. Yeah. I would say it could probably tolerate a couple hours of shade.
So Margaret at Dropsy Nursery recommended that for my front flower bed, which mine doesn't look anything like that yet.
Oh.
It's only 1 year, but so it's nice to see what it might look like in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it is super pretty.
It's pretty sparse right now. I mean, last year was the first year and it was just.
The one thing I would think about with this is, you know, planting it near your house and stuff, beware that a lot of wildlife may hide out in it, because it is, when it starts to tip over like that, that does make a great cover for them to keep away from predators or to nest. Cause I could see like a family of rabbits like, ooh, this looks like good cover. Let me just sleep under here for a little while. So, yeah. Did I skip one? Hold on, I might have skipped one. This one, okay. So next one, service berry. So we switched. In case you didn't know, they didn't put a slide in here that said we switched. In the corner. Yeah, they did in the corner, but they just didn't put it like they did the last time. So we're switching to shrubs and trees that are native, okay, and small trees at that. Service berry is here, and it grows 15 to 25 feet tall. It can though reach up heights up to 40 feet in the wild. It could be a small single stem, or it could have a multi-stem especially if you let those root suckers grow. So you could have a multi-stem tree. Well, let's see, anything, the berries have some resemblance to blueberries, if you're looking at that. Let's see, tolerates clay, soil, and air pollution. So again, with our area and the air quality, this would be a good one that you could use. Uh-huh. Yeah. So, and it does get a really nice, pretty fall foliage color on it. Also, it does tend to have a lot of issues with insects. So leaf miners, carousel flies, spider mites, aphids, peach borer, and the scale. Kind of runs the gamut, and then it runs the gamut on diseases too. That includes cedar apple rust, glomera, leaf spot, fruit rot, fire blight, powdery mildew, witch's broom, and leaf blight. So even though it's a native and meant for our climate area, it's not user friendly in terms of, do you have to watch it for these other insects and diseases? Okay, next one is witch hazel. Okay, this is a good winter interest one. They should all be starting to flower pretty soon if they're not already flowering. So these are an early spring flowering plant, shrub, I should say. Hold on, I have a comment here. Oh, and Travis said service berry is edible and tasty. I don't know. I've never had a service berry, so. Let's see here. So witch hazels can grow 15 to 20 feet tall with a similar spread. So think about them, they're more of a shrub. So 15 to 20 tall and 15 to 20 wide. And it gets these, native habitat though can be up to 30 feet tall. So if you have the right soil conditions and the right sunlight and moisture, you'll be looking at way more than a shrub, just saying. So let's see. Fertilized flowers will form fruit over a long period extending through winter and into the fall and growing season. Fruits are greenish seed capsules that become woody with age and mature to a light brown. Each capsule splits open in the fall of the following year, exploding the 1 to 2 black seeds within up to 30 feet. So when that seed pod explodes, it can shoot it up to 30 feet. Again, if you're looking for that I like that, garden in motion. Garden in motion theory, this would be one that you could utilize.
Can you repeat that? You said you were talking about,
The seed pods, so it
no,
takes,
I, like maybe one sentence before that about the fruits or something.
yeah, let's see, I can go back a little bit. Let's see here. Fruits are greenish seed capsules that become woody with age, okay,
Okay.
and mature to a light brown, which is pretty common for seeds. As they mature, they change color. So it goes from that green to brown. Each seed capsule splits open in the fall of the following year. Yeah,
They hang on a whole extra season.
yeah. Yeah, and then they split open in the fall of the following year, exploding the 1 to 2 black seeds up to 30 feet from the parent plant.
And this picture kind of shows it as like an understory kind of thing. Is that?
It could be, or you can do it as a hedge. Like I have one that I just planted in the wide open. It's gonna get shade in the summer, but right now it's in the open. So, but yeah, this can be a hedge too.
It could go either way.
Yeah, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Let's see. Let's see. I think Laura, was it Laura that put in here? Oh yeah, if you're looking for service berries, we're gonna backtrack. You can go to the Falls of the Ohio and check them out there. If you can beat the birds to the berries. So you need that. Then our next plant is smooth hydrangea. So a lot of people don't realize that we have hydrangeas that are native, and this is the smooth one. It is not included in the publication that you're going to get. It is a very easy to grow shrub though, so it is included for that reason. Is native to moist or rocky wooded slopes, ravines, stream banks, and bluffs. So it does well in kind of some of those rockier areas. And it, let's see here, flowers May to July. So that's when we're looking to see this one flower. And its seeds will ripen in October and November. So it's gonna flower in the spring, and you won't see ripened seeds until the fall.
How big does it do?
That's a great question. I'm thinking no more than like 6 to 8 feet. Now, again, plants don't read the tags though, so given the right conditions, could get taller. And this one I'd have to look up to see when it prunes, when you have to prune it, because there's 3 different hydrangea types, and they all 3 get pruned at different times. So if you're trying to control the size of it, you have to base it on when it sets the next season's flowers. So, yeah. There's a reason I don't remember all this information, because sometimes it's just too much to remember. But if you have questions about it, let me know. There's a publication for that too, that we have a whole chart of when to prune the different plants. And this one, a lot of hydrangeas, you can affect the color by changing the pH. This is not one of those. You cannot make this plant be blue or pink by changing the pH. White, so it stays the white. You cannot change it. All right, the next one is buttonbush. This is a popular one that we tend to get out of the state nursery and give away at Pollinator Day. Everyone likes it. I do chuckle because one of my friend's kids saw the photo of it right as the pandemic started and said, "Hey, that looks like the COVID-19 virus." I'm like, well, there you go. That might not be the best selling point for that plant right now. So it's a deciduous shrub to most of the lower 48 states. So not something we would necessarily find in Alaska, but it can be found in the rest of the 48 states. Let's see. It's a member of the coffee family, in case you're wondering, and typically grows in zones 4 to 9. Let's see here. Flower heads are very attractive to hummingbirds, butterflies, flies, and wasps. And the flower head matures into a hard spherical ball-like fruit consisting of multiple tiny 2-seeded nutlets. So this one, once that seed forms, there's like little nutlets inside of it. If you want to dissect that and try to replant them. Okay. Let's see, how tall is this one gonna get? This is another one that does not super tall. They were right when they said they were doing a lot of editing. They're gonna do some hard edits. This one again is not more than 6 feet tall. So it's again a shorter one. They're super cool though, and the pollinators really do like them. So in case you're wondering, the butterfly in here is the swallowtail, tiger swallowtail specifically. All right, next one, gray dogwood. This is a deciduous shrub, or you could do it as a tree. So you can either let it grow multi-stemmed or make it a single stem, 10 to 15 feet tall, and usually occurs on rocky ground along streams, ponds, and wet meadows. You could probably use it make your own like hedge of the shrub or whatever, or just put it out on its own. There's whatever you wish to do with it. Attractive to bees, bee specialist, and the summer azure host. So that summer azure is the butterfly that likes this plant. Okay. Let's see, anything? No serious insect or disease problems. The dogwood bud gall occurs on this species, but is usually not a significant problem. So. Next one is a winterberry, and this is deciduous hollies. We talked about this a little bit last time when we're talking about the deciduous hollies and stuff. This would be that, and you can see it has these nice distinct red berries on it that hang on far into the winter, and the berries, a lot of the birds eat them. So if you're looking to feed the birds, this would be what you're wanting to do. It prefers full sun to part shade, and semi-wet to wet soil. So again, if we have an area that doesn't drain super quickly, you could put this in there. It grows in swamps and at the edges of upland forest where the water table is pretty high. So 6 to 10 feet tall on this one. So again, depending on conditions, depends on how tall it's gonna cap out at. It is spread slowly by root suckering. So this is one that if you're not watching it, it's gonna have some root suckers pop up and start some new plants for you. Great way to spread your money.
When I planted mine, I was told I had to have, I mean, this is years ago, because mine got 10 feet tall,
Uh-huh.
but I had to have a male and a female plant. Do they,
This is,
I
that's true for most hollies, that they're
I have
dioecious.
one plant that never did have berries.
Uh-huh, yep, so hollies are typically, I'm trying to flip through here because I don't know off the top of my head if this follows the same. Yes, oh, it does. So dioecious, meaning it has to have two. So you have to be able to have a female plant and a male plant. If you have plants that are never setting fruit, guess what? It's a male. So, yeah,
Unless you don't have a male around and it's a female.
yeah. But you would still see it flower even if it was a female. It just wouldn't set the fruit because it wouldn't be pollinated. So, yeah, you need at least two.
I mean, the male actually produces what you would consider or at least mine did,
A small flower.
a small flower.
Yeah, because they've got to get the pollen from there. So they would both still flower, but if you're seeing it flower and not set the fruit though.
Right.
Then that's why you would only have.
I would really like to have, I mean, it was a wonderful plant, but I'd like to have a smaller one.
And that's the one thing I don't know that the nurseries do is that they grow them out and determine if they're male or female, like. They have to grow some of them out so they can tell you, oh, you have to have this one and this one. The same is true with like the hardy kiwis, that when you buy those, they're like, oh, you have to have two. So they have to sell you a male and a female. So when you go, just, I guess, make sure and see if you can find where it's marked male or female on the plant, so you can get both. Is really the only thing. So, oh, here you go. The male flowers is needed within 50 feet of the female. So, yeah, if it's more than 50 feet, no go on pollination. They do poorly in neutral to alkaline soils, and it makes them susceptible to chlorosis. So if they're not in more acidic soils, they will not do well. Travis put in here, hollies have an almost square mile pollinizing range. We try to sell mostly male trees and shrubs, but we have females for this fruit. So, because Travis works at a nursery, so that's what they try to do. All right, our next one. This is a slide that was messed up, and I was like, no, I know that leaf. 9-bar. We were talking about this last time too. So this is what I have, that wine colored one.
That's what I have.
Yep. And they didn't put a whole lot of information on it. Again, these are gonna get 8 to 10 feet tall and wide. So still kind of pretty though. The native ones are the green color down there. They all have that white flower. Purple ones, they tend to have a more pinkish flower on them. And let's see.
So you're saying that's a cultivar?
Uh-huh. Yep, this one's a cultivar, and this is the native. The cultivar can throw back though to the native. So,
There's lots of different kinds.
yeah. And this one's really easy to distinguish too. It has this, it's hard to see in here, but the bark kind of exfoliates, so it kind of peels back to give some winter interest.
These shrubs that get pretty big, can you, like a hydrangea, you can trim back? Can you trim back a 9-bar too?
Yep, you can prune it and stuff. It's just, sometimes people get heavy-handed with it and then they prune so much that it doesn't flower and then they think that their plant's dying and call me and I'm like, well, when did you prune it? And then they prune it at the wrong time and pruned all the buds off of it. So like I went in, and I don't do little cuts. When doing shrubs and stuff, you want to try to do big cuts to get the most out of your time and your energy. So you would go back and prune out some of the branches closer to the main stems versus doing like little bitty cuts to shape it up. Does that make, like I wouldn't take like a hedge trimmer to it and trim it like a hedge. Does that make sense?
It does, but if there's a, like, okay, let's say there's 3 branches, just making up a number,
Uh-huh.
and I wanna reduce the overall volume by 1/3, I would cut one of them off. But now these 2 are still long. Can I still cut them off at
You
some
would-
other point?
You could come back. I just wouldn't cut them as,
You would literally just only cut the
Yeah.
shape on the outside, also
yeah.
thin
I,
it from the inside.
these bushes were never meant to be shaped like boxwoods.
Mhm.
They're meant to have more of a free flowing thing. So you have to be selective in your cuts, but make your cuts count. Is that may not make sense. That may just be the pruner and me talking, but
Well, you're never gonna have, I mean, you're always gonna, on those things, they've got multiple stems.
they
You
do,
can-
yeah.
You can remove 1/3 of those small stems
Mhm.
without really hurting.
But I'm just thinking like, let's say it's growing too tall that I can't see out my window anymore or something
Yep.
like that, then is it okay to,
Yeah, and I still wouldn't use like like an electronic head shear or the clippers, like I would go in and do it by
Sure.
hand, just so you don't do as much damage to the stems. Because sometimes,
you
it'll-
don't just mangle them up?
yeah,
Got it.
that's, yeah. I tend to use a lot more hand pruning than some educators who like to just take although it is quite satisfactory to just take the electronic one, the plug-in ones and stuff and just go to town and shear something back, but it can do a lot of damage if you don't know what you're doing and maybe get a couple thicker branches that you don't see caught up in it and then mingle the thicker branches, so. Yeah. All right, let's see here, anything else that's important of this one that you need to know? Let's see. I'm gonna go with, let's see. No serious insect or disease problems, fire blight and leaf spots may occur. So that's the only thing to know about them. They may get fire blight or leaf spot. But again, I've had mine for several years and have never seen an issue with it, so. Next one is fragrant sumac. This is deciduous. Sometimes when people don't know what they're looking at, they call me and tell me that they have tree of heaven. And stuff when they're looking at the sumac. So this would be your fragrant one, and it's a dense, low growing, rambling shrub, and it has root suckers. So this one's gonna spread just like your other shrubs from root suckers and can spread up to 10 feet. So 2 to 4 feet tall, 10 foot wide. And in the autumn, it can be in shades of orange, red, and purple. All right. Let's see, the male catkins, which is the seed down here. They form in the late summer and persist throughout the winter until eventually blooming in spring. The male flowers give way in the female flowers, I should say, give way in late summer to small clusters of hairy red berries, which may persist into winter. And the wildlife really like the fruit, so.
Is this sumac related to poison sumac or like staghorn sumac?
They're all
They don't look very similar, but
in this where's family, so genus, I should say. So yeah, they're all related. Let's see here. You can also use these for stabilizing embankments or hard to cover areas with poor soils. Tolerant of rabbit, drought, erosion, clay soil, dry soil, shallow rocky soil, and black walnut. So it's most of the check boxes. Our next plant is the pawpaw, also known as Indiana banana by some. Most of ours, you'll never see fruit on them because the wildlife, if they are setting fruit, will get to them first before you ever see them. Kentucky does a lot of research with the pawpaws if you're looking for cultivated varieties for your own fruit production, just as a FYI. That's a small native understory tree. So this one we're gonna find usually under a lot of plants, and it grows 15 to 20 feet tall. That could reach 30 feet in the right locations. Spreads by root suckers and can form really thick colonies if given the right space. So let's see here. It has a purple flower on it that has 3 green sepals and 6 purple petals in 2 tiers. Okay. Yeah, let's see, anything else that you need to know about? No serious insect or disease problems. It's always important. So that was the end of the plants that we were going to talk about tonight. There's tons more, but we only have so much time. So this is the publication. I actually have this publication for you. It is POL-6-W. The W means that it's on the web, but it's Purdue pollinator publication that I have it for you. I printed it in color so you can see it. On it, it'll have the scientific and common names of the plants, their growing conditions in terms of light, moisture, talks about how tall they're going to get, what color they flower, and then which species of pollinators and if they're host specific. So like for all the milkweed, it'll say like monarch at the far end of it. So you can look at things like that. We are, just a reminder, you can do the Grow Indiana Native certificate program. So you can go to the Indiana Native Plant Society and get registered. You can look for people that are registered that are selling native plants. So this is where they can go through there and get promoted that they're selling native plants. So for us, Reseed Native Nursery in Jeffersonville is on here. Margaret Shea Drop Seed Nursery in Goshen, Kentucky is listed here. There's, if you're doing large wholesale like Spence's Nursery up near Muncie, they're listed. We don't have a ton down in this area, but you can check the website and find several. Then our resources. So again, these are the different resources that were used and that you can use for your own information. And I'll flip this back to the end. Then, as always, our friendly reminder, if you're using pesticides, read and follow all label instructions. It's the law. I'm gonna flip this back to the last page. So if you want to write down the resources, I do have an end of class survey that I would like you to take, please. Other questions, comments, concerns? I'm open to anything. Yes, Frida.
Right at the very beginning, you were talking about milkweed,
Uh-huh,
and you said the ones that are out here, that you mow them.
the common.
Yes, do they flower before you mow them?
They haven't been because of when people come to mow them, at least out in the field.
Right.
Yeah.
So
the-
they're mowing seasonally before they do flower,
And then it
and they're
causes,
still coming back.
yep, because it forces them to branch. So,
Okay.
yeah. Typically, you would not want them to branch because then they're a weaker plant.
That's what I was thinking, with cutting them down like that, how would it benefit the?
It doesn't.
pollinators?
It just benefits the people that own the property
Okay,
that come to mow it. It does nothing for anybody except that's when they have to come mow it.
that answers
Are they
it.
intermingled with other plants that need to be mowed?
Yeah, because this has been left as like an open field. And so up until the time that Optum came in, they would come in and mow it a couple of times a year.
Like bush hog it?
Yeah.
I see, just maintenance kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was just maintenance stuff. Because the idea is that this whole property is supposed to be developed at some point. And it's kind of slow to get developed, which is fine. But yeah, they'll come in and mow those areas. Partly to keep some of the wildlife out. It's not been uncommon for a couple of us to almost hit deer at the roundabout because they just stand in the middle of the roundabout at like 10 o'clock at night. But yeah. Other questions, comments, concerns?
And, you'll share these slides?
Yep, I'll do
too?
the same thing. But I can tell you, it'll definitely be at least Monday before I get it to you because life's busy and it's taking a while to edit the video.
So they did not take the pre-test.
It's okay, they can
They
still
can
take
still
this
take the
one.
first.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's why I didn't
Yeah.
give you one of these surveys. I know
It's
you didn't
okay.
take the pre-test, but I will give you
Yeah.
one so you can take the post-test.
Is there a place to go to find some of these native plants? Is there a go-to place?
I mean, a lot of the nurseries have some natives, not all.
Margaret Shea has a lot of them.
Which one?
Margaret Shea, the one at Goshen County.
Drop seed.
Drop seed nursing.
She has some,
She's a great resource for this information too. But Matt is doing a really good job, I think.
Drop seed nursery is a little informal. Like, it doesn't, you just kind of park in the grass and there's not a sign. Maybe there's a
There's a
sign,
little sign by the drive.
a little sign, but it's not like it's not like on the highway or anything like that. It's just sort of like a little, but it's cool. It's great.
I mean, Google Maps will get you there.
yeah, it's
That's
a,
how I got there the first time.
Angel and I refer to it as horse country because you drive so far out in Goshen, like you're passing all the horse farms. But, even like McCoy's nursery will have some natives out in Charlestown. So they're all carrying some natives. It's just a selection of natives. It's sometimes limited.
Do they list them typically, say this is a native plant, non-native plant?
No, not always. Sometimes
So you
it's
have to go off this list.
You have to ask them. They might say, oh, yes, here's where I keep my natives. They just may not have like a
A
specific.
lot of nursery workers are not that knowledgeable on them, it seems like.
It depends on the store. I'll say it just depends on the store and how long they've had their staff on.
Y'all should come visit Wallach's.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Our perennial master is a master gardener, and she makes us alphabetize everything by a scientific name. We carry like 9 out of 10 of the items that were listed tonight. And the people that work there are incredibly knowledgeable.
Hey, Travis,
Yes.
you special order stuff for us if it's not in stock?
We do not. We do use Shop Monrovia, but otherwise special orders, we don't do that.
Okay.
other questions, comments, concerns? Well, I don't have anything else. We got done about a half an hour early, which for small class, that's typically what I would expect when there's not a ton of questions or y'all aren't sure what to ask me, and that's okay. If you were here for all 4 nights, and Travis and Laura, I'll get with you later about this. Floyd County Soil and Water Conservation District sponsored the class. Man, it's middle of the week. And if you were here for all 4 nights, you get a boot scraper to help clean your shoes off before you go anywhere so that you're not tracking seeds everywhere. So you can thank Angel and her directors for that because that's what they chose to do for this class. So
I do have a question. Are native bars as beneficial?
I guess it depends on which native R you're talking about.
Okay.
Because I still think that's a species dependent thing. But better than just buying a straight up cultivar
Right.
because, and some of our native Rs, we just find them by happenstance.
Because, like in the home landscape, a lot of these get really big, like the button bush and that kind of
Uh-huh.
thing. Well, I may not want a 6 or 8 foot, but if I can get a 3 or 4 foot, then
Yep.
I get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. So yeah, looking for those dwarf ones, that's what they were talking like with the little blue stem and stuff. There's more coming on the market that are more of those dwarf varieties because they know that people don't want 10-foot tall
Right.
plants in their yard. So, yeah. They're still beneficial because they are the natives and they're not gonna require as much work,
Mhm.
which is always important. That's what I always look for, those that don't require a lot of effort. So, That's the way everything is in my yard, you know.
I plant you, I water you for a month,
Dude,
never don't.
my house plants are survival of the fittest. They're lucky they get watered once every 3 months, so they're a survival of the fittest. Yeah, I have nothing else. So as you all finish, Angel will collect your post-program survey. Don't see any other questions. So. Oh.
You didn't bring the pen. did
Oops,
you?
my bad. My bad. And then with this class, there will be like, you'll see an email from me with a 6-month follow-up email. And then a year, because this is, again, they're testing this program and making adjustments to it so that we can really start to get it out
Thank you.
statewide and maybe even a little further. Because as we've talked about, the more education that's out there, the more we'll see people start using more natives and getting rid of their invasives.
Did I hear you say they're not gonna have that meeting at Mount St. Francis?
Not this month, we're gonna push it back a month.
It's the next
It'll be in April.
April, the third Monday in April.
Sure. I don't know that I put it back on my calendar. Yeah, hold on. Should be April 18th.
18.
Uh-huh.
And what do you do?
Well, we haven't had great attendance at our meetings. Recently, partly because of COVID, which that does jog my memory. I'll show you the stuff for chirp too. I have the stuff for chirp. So we talk about upcoming events that we're gonna do, like weed wrangles. Is usually what we talk about.
Doesn't Kayla usually highlight a particular
Do you pull
invasive?
invasive species up at Mount St. Francis?
Sometimes. Yeah, we have.
We've had 2 week wrangles up.
Mhm. But not during the monthly meetings. Those are usually like organizational. Yes, we're gonna highlight a weed just so you're aware of it, and here's the upcoming events, here's what we need to do. So like right now, it's been Angel and myself. Laura's been at several of the meetings. Swissel, Isla's been at a few of them. There's been a good number, but we were doing really good pre-pandemic. Like we did a workshop out there and had like 45 to 50 people show up. And the pandemic hit and all the numbers like plummeted. And so we're having a hard time getting back on track. But what we've done recently is partner with Chirp. So that's what's up on the screen. This is the Clark County Invasive Species Group, and it's Chirp with, shoot, I still didn't share it all right. I have it shared right on here, but not. Dang it, I'm so close on this. So close, so close. There we go. Much better. Okay, so this is the Clark County group. Chirp spelled with 2 C's. And we've been partnering with them to do a weed wrangle. So we went out to the disc golf course at Lapping, thank you, Park last October, because they called me, they had some erosion issues, and we were talking and walked and realized they had a lot of invasives and they're trying to keep it up. But again, if you have a disc golf, you have a lot of people walking through there that are picking up seeds and stuff along the way and moving them from one place to the next, or they're bringing in seeds. So we did a quick weed wrangle there and planted some natives, and then they got a grant. So Angel's counterpart, Clark County, applied for a national grant and was awarded like $1,500. There was like four awards. There was only a handful of awards given. Clark County happened to be one of them, and it's to use on the disc golf course so we can start putting signage up and removing the invasives and planting natives to help that disc golf course really be kind of a spotlight and lead the way in promoting natives, because they all want to take care of the place they use. They go to multiple courses around. There's like a whole circuit for the disc golf, and so they're very adamant that they want to lead the way, and that's a group of people that we don't typically see. They were super excited to learn about plants. We even gave a few lessons to their kids about how to properly use a trowel. That was a kind of a chuckle for some of us because they didn't know how to use a trowel and plant a plant. So we did that with them, and we'll be doing some more with them. Because we're so close together, we share so many land spaces between Floyd and Clark that sometimes it's easier for us to work together than to have so many separate events to try to draw people to, so.
If you attend a weed wrangle,
uh-huh.
I assume you bring your own tools.
Yep.
Do you also bring Roundup or is that?
No, that's something that Kayla would do.
Okay.
So there would be a couple of us on chemical duty.
Okay.
And Nathan's been part of the SISMA too for Lake County. He's come to a few of the meetings.
I've only been coming since COVID, so I haven't got to do
Yeah.
a ton of the stuff, but
Yeah, we're working on it and it's a rebuilding process. We were doing really good. Like Harrison County has a group, but they have someone that's more like you all instead of like Angel and I, that's really spearheading it to making sure all the events get happen and stuff. Because Angel and I schedules fill up, so they actually have someone else that's really taking the lead over there to help plan all the events and stuff. But almost every state in Indiana has a SISMA, which was the state's goal originally, was to make sure that there was a grassroots organization in every county helping kind of push the lead. Because we can't, no one group can do it by themselves. So if there's community members educating other community members, there's a bigger impact.
Do you have the name of the one from Harrison? It's like farm. Or
Oh, you're gonna ask me that. I'm gonna get on Facebook. Let's see here. I think I'm gonna have to look that one up.
I mean, I could probably do a Google search.
Might get it.
Contact Harrison County SWCD, they would know.
Yeah,
The Harrison County Soil and Water Conservation District. Harrison County SWCD.
yeah. I didn't get, yeah, my quick search did not get me anywhere quickly. Because they don't go by Harrison. They all created their own, like we all have our own names, like we're the Lake County Native Habitat Restoration Team. Clark County is Clark County Harmful Invasive Removal Project. Harrison County is something else. So we all have a different acronym. Sometimes it's hard to keep track.
is there a website that, like,
Yeah, if you
they're all
go,
listed?
if you go to the SICM website, so the State of Indiana Invasive Species Council,
But it's sick of how you.
SICIM. You go to that one, and that link is in one of the first emails I sent, or it should be. It'll actually have a map and show like which counties have
Okay.
things and stuff. So, and then Angel, because you held that up, because I had too many, right? So in your packets, you'll have the agenda for the upcoming SICM meeting, which is at the end of March. You have to register by March 16th, I think, to get the link, and that's what they're going to cover this year. Oh, hold on. Got too many things going here. Let's see. Oh, and so Travis put his email in here. So if you want to email Travis anything, it's dicktjr@gmail.com. So DICKTJR@gmail.com. So if you have him, or I can email it, or I can email you all so you can all intermingle, or you can find out how to come to the different SISMAs and stuff. So. All right, I have nothing else for anybody, so if you have no more questions, you are free to go.
Thank you all so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Yes, happy to do it.